So, welcome to this webinar. My name is Jan Storgaard. I'm a biochemist at Vilofoss. First of all, I would like to excuse last time where we had technical difficulties. I was actually unable to go online, so that was from my side. So sorry for that. So today's presentation, the webinar today, is going to be about Stalosan F and HooFoss and the mechanism behind. In this presentation, I have just above 20 slides, so not an extreme amount. And the first half of it is going to be technical stuff, and I have to walk you through that in order for you to understand, the mechanism of actions of the two products, and to understand what lies behind the products in general. So, okay, let's get started. So, first of all, hoof health. When I look at that and I look at the products that are, that is out on the market, what I see is, typical products like, for instance, formaldehyde, formalin, or copper sulfate. It's about killing bacteria. So the approach nowadays, as I see it at least, is that most products is, if they want to control hoof infections, like for instance, digital dermatitis, it is about trying to kill bacteria within the wound. According to me, that doesn't make that much sense. You let the cow through a hoof bath, for instance, just after milking, and in this hoof bath, you will have something that kills the bacteria within the wound. That's okay. But the problem is, shortly after, the cow walks back into the cow barn and will get reinfected by billions of bacteria always existing in an environment like that. So it's a short belief, and it's not enough, according to us, to actually control to a significant level this kind of diseases. We need something else, and that is what I'm going to talk about today with HooFoss. If we look towards our biocidal powder product, Stalosan F, it is more, in the cow cubicles, for instance, or calf boxes, hutches. And here we have a high biocidal disinfecting effect of Stalosan F. But again, here we kind of recognize that we need more in order to achieve this high efficacy we see with this product. And so this next technical slides I'm going to show you is regarding that. First of all, I want to show you this slide. Many years back, I went on several different Danish farms because I wanted to investigate the level of ammonia, knowing that ammonia is a problematic factor, and knowing that ammonia is actually capable of increasing the infection rate. So I wanted to measure that. And as you can see here, let me just get a pointer. So here we can see that I measured on solid floor the liquid slurry, and I came up with readings around 50 ppm ammonia, which is quite high. Actually, humans are not allowed to work in an environment with that level of ammonia for more than 8 minutes, because it is in fact dangerous. Another thing about ammonia is that it is a very alkaline product. It has a high pH value of around 13, so highly irritating, highly corrosive. And because of this high pH value, we also see that the pH value on the solid floor, in this case here, is also quite high. So the reading was here 9. And sometimes it's a bit lower, and sometimes it's even higher, maybe around 10. And also you can see we have this humid environment, a lot of moisture, water. And the same, not to the same extent, but we also see it slightly in the cubicles. And so why am I talking about ammonia and moisture? Well, it's because we have just realized that this is also a factor that affects the rate of infection, the power of the bacteria within the barn. Okay, that leads to this next slide. It's a bit confusing, but I will help you through it as good as I can. Here on the left side, you have to imagine this is a cutoff of a tissue, the skin tissue. It could be, for instance, just above the hoof on a cow, for instance, where you will have the digital area where a cow can develop digital dermatitis, for instance. If a cow is out on pasture all year round, not in the barn, we have optimal conditions. We have well-deformed, we have a good tissue, and we have on top of the skin tissue, we have something called sebum. And sebum is a waxy substance. It is composed of harmless bacteria and immune factors, but also organic acids. And those organic acids are extremely important in terms of preventing bacterial infection. Okay, I'll get back to that. Let's start with point number 1. This sebum layer that covers the skin, we also have it on our skin. You can feel it. That is what makes this kind of moist. This skin is waterproof. And that means water in the skin tissue cannot escape out. It stays within and it keeps the skin moist. And when it's moist, it's flexible. In that way, we have flexible skin, and there is not any chance of crack formation if the skin is stretched by movement by the car. Also, I mentioned the organic acids within this layer of sebum. And this brings the pH value down on the surface of the skin. And pathogenic bacteria, like for instance Treponema, but also other bacteria, for instance in the cubicles, they do not like organic acids. They do not like a low pH value. So when they get into contact with the surface here, they will be inactivated. They will not grow. And sometimes they may even die. So here on this healthy side, we have a very powerful first line defense against any infection, through the skin. And that could be, close to the tick canal, on the udder, or it could be in this digital area where a cow will develop digital dermatitis. Okay, what happens when we take this cow and put it into a high yield dairy production? As explained before, we have moisture and we have ammonia, and that changes the situation quite a bit, because ammonia in water is alkaline, high pH value, as I mentioned earlier. And because of this alkalinity, it is actually possible to dissolve sebum, because sebum is acidic. It means now suddenly sebum is dissolved, there is no protection anymore. What happens is that this waterproof surface is gone. Now water starts to escape from the tissue below. The skin dries out. If movements of the skin happens, maybe cracks will form. Then suddenly bacteria can penetrate and go in. Also the cells, the skin cells, they shrink because there is not much water left. And that will create some passages between the cells. And finally, this organic acids that will inhibit the pathogenic bacteria is also gone. And now we have a completely different situation, and bacteria are capable of infecting much easier. And so that is why I say we need more than just the ability to kill. Okay, let's move on with the two products for a short comparison. First of all, Stalosan F form is a powder, ready to use. You just sprinkle it on the surface in the rear part of the cubicles, for instance, or on the top of the bedding, for instance, in the calf box. For HooFoss, it's a liquid, also ready to use. You would use it in a sprayer, for instance, the best sprayer you can find, maybe battery driven, so you have a nice flushing. And you will use HooFoss in the milking parlor, doing milking, for instance, a rotary. It's also possible, or even outside in the cow barn, if there is headlocks, you can also treat the digital area above the hooves. We normally with HooFoss only treat the rear legs, because that is where we see most problems with digital dermatitis. What those two products share, and this is also what this presentation is about, is that they are both of the products are composed of mineral acids. Okay, because mineral acids will break down ammonia, they both have a high capacity to break down ammonia, and that means this impact I showed you before will be decreased. The pH value is of course low. It's acidic because it composed of mineral acids. Sorry. So Stalosan F is a 3.5 and HooFoss is 2.5. This is nice to, to bind this ammonia, but it's also very convenient because most of those pathogenic bacteria, like Streptococcus aureus or E. coli or Treponema in DD, they don't like pH value below 4. So often they will be inactivated if the pH is below 4, and often also even killed. So it's not a direct effect, but they just have a hard time surviving at that low pH values. Okay. Another thing that is important, especially for Stalosan F, is that the water binding capacity of Stalosan F is approximately 1 part water to 1 part Stalosan F. But if we have ammonia at the same time present, in the environment where we use the product, Stalosan F, a chemical reaction will happen. And what happens is we have water, it's a liquid of course, and we have ammonia also in a liquid form. And those will react chemically with Stalosan F, the mineral acids within Stalosan F, and those liquids will form into a solid. So it's a strange chemical reaction, but it's very powerful. And what happens with Stalosan F is that if there is ammonia, we increases this water binding capacity up to 3 to 4 parts water to 1 part Stalosan. So that's a huge increase. It's not equally important in HooFoss, even though we see the same with HooFoss, but it is important on the skin because when we spray HooFoss on the skin, it dries out. It leaves a mineral acidic layer that covers this digital area. And if moisture comes in and becomes a problem together with ammonia, it will dry out. So we have a nice dry environment on the surface of the skin. So it's also important for HooFoss. Another thing that is not discussed so much and is a bit more complicated is hydrogen sulfide. I have to mention it here, especially for HooFoss. The thing is, a bacteria like Treponema is anaerobic, so it hates oxygen. It cannot survive if there is oxygen surrounding the bacteria itself. So what does the bacteria do? It produces hydrogen sulfide because hydrogen sulfide can break down oxygen and keep oxygen away from this local environment, for instance, in the wound where Treponema will live and grow. And so if we remove hydrogen sulfide with HooFoss or in cubicles with Stalosan F, we remove this ability for the bacteria to have an oxygen-free environment. And then suddenly a lot of oxygen comes in close contact with, for instance, Treponema, and that is highly toxic to the bacteria. Another thing is important also with oxygen. If you have a wound and the cow is constantly trying to heal this wound, it's quite difficult if there is no oxygen because the immune system of a cow, in order to function well and efficient, it needs oxygen. So this chronic M4 wound, for instance, with a lot of bacteria, Treponema, or no oxygen comes into contact with the surface of the wound, it's hard for the immune system to actually heal. So by removing that, we greatly increase the immune response. Direct biocidal effect, we have that with Stalosan F. It's active, it contains active biocides. It's registered in the US and soon Europe as a biocide. So that is definitely the case. We don't have that in HooFoss at all. The effect of HooFoss is not dependent upon a direct biocidal effect. Finally, support wound healing. That is what it's all about for the product HooFoss. It's not a direct wound healing, but we just impairs and remove all the factors that kind of keeps up the wound and makes it impossible for the cow to heal. So by removing those factors, the cow will do the job by itself. Actually, also Stalosan F, even though the contact used in a cubicle, for instance, the contact between the powder Stalosan F and the digital area is not great, but if there is a contact, it will also support wound healing. Okay, I will skip this one. Now, the final part of the technical details is I will try to illustrate what happens in this environment surrounding the cow with those three factors: the moisture, the high alkalinity by primarily ammonia, but also carbonate, and then the influence by the bacteria. And I have kind of illustrated in this way that we have kind of an infectious circle, that if that becomes bigger, there is a greater chance of, increased somatic cell count, for instance, or even mastitis, and also on the walking areas. If there is more bacteria, more moisture, and more ammonia, there is a greater chance of developing digital dermatitis, for instance. Right. So, but let's just for this slide here, look at a cow standing in the cubicles. So we will maybe have some E. coli, maybe we'll have some Streptococcus aureus, and that alone, of course, will increase the risk of having an other infection, and that will kind of drive this infection cycle. But we can potentiate this cycle and make the infection rate even bigger, as earlier explained, by also having this huge production of ammonia and carbonate. And who is actually responsible for those two alkaline products? Well, it is the bacteria itself, because they have an enzyme that they excrete. It's called urease, and urease is the sole factor who actually transform urea from the cow urine, and then the general level of moisture in the barn transforms it into ammonia and carbonate. And those two products have a high pH and high alkalinity, so they will also support this infection cycle and makes it easier for bacteria to infect. Finally, we have usually high levels of moisture also, and that is also something that the skin surface constantly cannot cope with, and that will also increase the infection rate. Okay, that is the situation. Then, what I see so many places on so many dairy farms is that a powder product is used in the cubicles, and many times this powder product is based on limestone or maybe hydrated lime, more or less. So what is created in those products is a high pH value. And you can see that down here. Calcium carbonate is the same as limestone, and that will, push the pH value up. So we have this bad impact from bacteria, from moisture, and from alkaline products. And that we will potentiate even further by adding those alkaline products in the cubicles. And that will make this circle go even faster and make it more easy for bacteria to actually infect. And the more bad thing about this is also that those limestone-based products, they don't have any efficacy whatsoever in killing bacteria. It's all about drying. So according to us, what you do is just you are worsening the situation by adding yet another alkaline product. Okay. What happens if we add Stalosan F instead of? Well, we know that Stalosan F, it is registered as a biocide. It kills effectively the most common bacteria that causes high somatic cell count, mastitis, and so on. So we have a direct effect on the level of bacteria within the rear part of the cubicles here. Also, I explained earlier, we have this high removal of moisture and water if there is also ammonia present. So we will also decrease this factor that impacts the circle a lot. Also, Stalosan F contains an inhibitor of urease. It means this process where we transform urea and moisture into ammonia and carbonate will be inhibited by Stalosan. So we will have a much lower formation of ammonia and carbonate when we use Stalosan. And finally, if there is some ammonia and carbonate still in the environment, and there will be, then we have this direct neutralization effect where the mineral acids in Stalosan F will neutralize this high alkalinity caused by ammonia and carbonate. So we affect all three factors that makes this infection cycle run. And that is why it is so much more effective compared to the limestone-based products. What happens if we use HooFoss? Well, then it's not about the cubicles, right? You would use it as mentioned, during milking, for instance. You will spray it on the digital area only a rear hoofs, because that's where you see most cases of DD. You will spray it on, it will dry out, and it will cover this skin layer and protects. And here it will also, remove the impact from the moist environment, hoof environment. It will not kill Treponema, but the low pH value will definitely make it difficult for Treponema to develop and survive. And because of the very low pH value, 2.5 for HooFoss. We don't have urease inhibition, but we have a low pH value, so we bind a lot of ammonia and carbonate. So with HooFoss specific in this area, we also see an impairment of all those three factors affecting the infection route. Okay, so what happens is if a farmer decides to use HooFoss and he adds a huge load of limestone in the beds? Well, as explained earlier, he will get this effect locally here at the digital area. But if there is a lot of limestone in this rear part of the cubicles, there is a chance that when the cow lays down, that this skin area covered with HooFoss will get into contact with the limestone or hydrated lime or whatever. And because it is an alkaline product, it will definitely break down and neutralize HooFoss. So there is a chance that especially if a farmer is using, like several hundred grams of limestone per day per cubicle, there is a chance that we will decrease the effect of HooFoss because the chemistry just not fit up. One is alkaline and one is acidic. So let's go to the final slide in this illustration, and that is if we combine Stalosan F and HooFoss. And I will just make it quick. We have the effect on the skin, we have the layer that covers and protects. We have also a covering layer of Stalosan F here in the cubicles. And if the cow lay down and gets into contact, the skin area here gets into contact with Stalosan F, no neutralization will be going on because they are similar. They are both composed of mineral acids and so on. And actually, if there is some Stalosan F that will end up in close contact with HooFoss, it will only support the effect of HooFoss and increase the effect. Also, I will mention finally that we know that if we have a cow with acute painful PD cases like M2 or M4.1, we know that if we can heal those wounds up, the cow will perform better, walk better, less pain, and will be more resistant in general as a cow. And here we see that the somatic cell count and the mastitis also usually will go down. So a stronger cow is just more resistant towards those other infections. Right. So this was the technical part of it. Now I will go to more practical details, just very fast. First of all, Stalosan F, as mentioned, cubicles, mastitis, high somatic cell count. That's the main thing. Also, delivery rooms, newborn calves very weak, treat the environment, control all the, the bad chemicals, ammonia, moisture, and so on, and also control the bacteria, makes good sense. Also in calf boxes, hutches, especially against diarrhea, we see a very nice effect with the product, just sprinkled on top of the bedding, daily if there is huge problems, or maybe a couple of times per week. Start applications in the cubicles with this product is we tend to more and more recommend to use it daily in the beginning. If a farmer has an issue, and he normally will have that when you choose a product like Stalosan F, he would like to see, nice, big effect, visible effect from the beginning. And therefore we recommend to go hard daily for a couple of weeks. So we have this fast and effective onset on the effect. And once, if it is environmentally induced increased somatic cell count, once this starts to go down, the farmer can continue with, a more prophylactic treatment with 1-2 applications per week. Okay, comes in 15 kilo plastic bags, if I didn't mention it earlier. How to apply it? Well, you can do it by hand. We most certainly would recommend instead to do it with this handyman. I have to excuse the wind coming from the side. The curtain was not taken down, so it is a bit windy. But it's just to show you how easy and fast you can get a uniform cover of the rear part of the cubicles. And this is important to have a nice effect. Okay, just a bit of trials. This one from Turkey, a farm divided into two. One part was treated with Stalosan F day 1, 2, and 3, and then once per week afterwards. And the other section of the farm was controlled and was not treated. Funny enough, they choose the part of the cow barn with high somatic cell counts and big problems, to be the Stalosan group, and the section with less problems was said to be the control. And what I want you just to notice is this nice continuously decrease in somatic cell count, ending up after 3 weeks at 107. That's quite good coming from such high levels. The control was, something in between, but no real, decrease. Also, we saw a nice effect. Also, the calf buses were treated, and we saw a reduction of 33% in calf diarrhea. Also, pneumonia was reduced, and the subclinical and clinical mastitis in cows were reduced by 50%. So very nice results for the product. We have another trial from Australia. This was in compost bedding, so it's a bit more challenging. There is a lot of organic matter. There is much more ammonia, and that makes it hard to control, somatic cell counts. But again, here, one section was taken out and treated with Stalosan. The other sections was kept as the control. And here we can see a clear-cut difference in level of somatic cell count compared to the control group. So yeah, nice results. Let's go to HooFoss. Practical info. We strongly recommend very good, high quality, battery driven sprayer because we need a good flushing in order to have a sufficient contact and the following good effect. So I really want to emphasize that. Also, the product comes in 1000 liter, 200 liter, and 15 liter. Because it's very heavy and saturated with mineral acids, this is actually 1,300 kilo. This is 250 kilo, and this is 20 kilo. Okay, here I won't show you the full video. This is available at Vilofoss homepage and also on YouTube. I just want to emphasize how this should be sprayed. I don't know if you can see it. I hope so, but if you can't, the idea is to put the nozzle of the sprayer all the way in the hoof cleft. Get a good flushing, and after you have flushed the hoof cleft very good, you move it up towards the digital area and end up treating that as well. Okay. So this is a farmer who contacted me more than a year ago from Ireland, who heard about this product, wanted to perform a small trial by himself. And we agreed on a setup on the distance, and he just took out of his herd, some cows with a classical N2 digital dermatitis, as you can see here. So this is at day 0. He washed it, took a picture, and then he started treating Monday and Thursday every week. And this is at day 9. So this cow received 3 treatments with HooFoss. And already now we can see that the DD wound is becoming smaller. There is a scab formation, and it looks like it is in a healing process. And if we look at day 27, we see we have a complete healing of this painful N2 wound. Sorry. Another cow from the same farmer, the same pattern we see. We start up with a classical N2, quite big one actually. After 3 treatments, 9 days. A large healing has been going on. There's a small scab left here, and at day 27 we have a complete heal. Last cow I have pictures of in this presentation at least. Same again, just to show you how convincing it is. The completely same pattern. After day 27 we have a complete heal. And finally I want to show you a study still running in Germany. This results here were published at the International Layman Conference in USA, Minnesota, not so long ago. I think it was in the beginning of August. And this study was and still are running, but it was done by Andrea Fiedler and Charlotte Kröger and Italian Glenn from Germany. 3 very good veterinarians with great expertise in hoof health in general. And what they did is they took 2 farms, one in the northern part of Germany and one in the southern part. 70 cows in each, so not very large farms, but easy to control in the study. And they took all cows through a hoof trimming box, and they treated all cases of digital dermatitis. And with salicylic acid on the bandage for, I think it was 3 to 5 days. And then 2 weeks later, they went and they looked for the level of the different stages of digital dermatitis. And M2, they had 32 cases. And so I have to explain before I move on. They took one cow and they said one rear leg is control leg and the other rear leg is HooFoss treated leg. They wanted it to set up this trial like that because no other factors should influence the results. So feeding, whatever, environment in general, it should be on the same cow that was control and a HooFoss treated. And so this was set as the control hoof. Here we had 32 M2, and in the HooFoss treated part we had 39. M3, no in the healing phase, no DD in the healing phase. The chronic stage, the M4, we had 26 in the control group and 20 in the the following HooFoss treated hoof. The other acute state and painful state besides M2 was the M4.1, which is a chronic wound where a new small active acute DD will develop. And here we have 16 in the control group and 20 in the following HooFoss treated group. This is then 3 weeks later. So we have been treating now one leg with HooFoss twice per week for 3 weeks. So altogether 6 treatments. And we saw a further decrease in the control group coming from 32 to 11 because the action of salicylic acid is going on for some time, and we still see a further healing, and that's indicated by this drop here. We also saw a drop in the control group in the M4.1 from 16 to 8, so I guess that's quite normal. But what is interesting is that in the HooFoss treated with the HooFoss treated leg, we saw initially 39 and it went all the way down to 1. And we saw in the M4.1, the other acute state, we saw it came from 20 to 1. So the conclusion for M2 and M4.1 was that there was a significant reduction in DD compared to the control hoof. Also, we could see that the number of M3, the healing phase, was higher in the HooFoss treated group compared to control, but that is what we would expect, right? The M4 alone, the chronic state, is a different story. I guess some of the M2 and the M4.1 after treatment with salicylic acid will go in and become a painless M4. In terms of HooFoss, we're doing something about the M4. We know from experience it's also possible, but it takes longer. So 3 weeks with 6 treatments is not enough to make any difference with HooFoss on the M4 case. Of course, this is also an issue because it is a reservoir for bacteria, and this is something that can be screened to an environment and other cows can be infected. So it's definitely important, even though the main focus is on M2 and M4.1. Okay, so the trial is still running, and I know that the results are becoming more and more clear, and I know that they have now started to treat both rear legs because of ethical reasons. And now we will follow that and see how it goes for the rest of the year. I'm not allowed to mention that here because it's not published yet. Okay, I think that was what I have decided to show you today. So if there is any questions, please let me know.
Thank you, Jan, for this interesting presentation. We have 3 questions until now. The first one is HooFoss more effective than formalin and copper sulfate?
Definitely, yes. So from Denmark, one of our big markets, we have a lot of experience with the copper sulfate. Farmers, even though it's not allowed, they need to do something and they treat the cows with copper sulfate. That's just how it is. And many of those farmers we have persuaded to start on HooFoss instead of copper sulfate, and what they see is a further increase in effect. So they see a lowering of DD compared to when they were running regularly with copper sulfate. And regarding formalin or formaldehyde, is not used so much in Denmark, but it is in Germany. And in the past, I have went to many German farmers where they were using on a regular basis formaldehyde, formalin, and they tend to use more and more in order to control the DD, and suddenly it just goes out of hands and the area becomes completely, broken down, because formalin is a tissue dissolver. So it's very hard to use, and it can end up with a very severe situation, out of control. And we persuaded them to start with HooFoss, and they saw a very nice effect compared to when they were running regularly with formalin. So yes, we know it's working much better.
Good to know. Something practical. How does the farmer use HooFoss when the farmer milks with robots?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there are two choices, I would say. There is always the choice to have a hoof bath at the exit, and it is possible for cows to get used to it. The problem is it's expensive, because you have to use a lot of product for a small group of cows. So normally I would not recommend that, but I do know that there are some farmers who will use this method. Otherwise, there are two main possibilities. One is if the farmer has headlocks for the cows. So during feeding, so lock all the cows, and you take this, for instance, this Milwaukee sprayer, put it on as a knapsack sprayer, and you have a long lance, and you can go from a safe distance and just spray the rear hooves. So that's also very effective, and it doesn't actually take that long. The final solution, which is the most automatic solution, is that nowadays almost all robots, you can buy a sprayer that can suck up concentrated liquids, which is important for HooFoss because we use it concentrated. It can suck up, and it sprays automatically when the cows are in the robot and it's milking. It sprays from behind just very fast, like that, and sprays HooFoss. And we have some farmers in Denmark who uses this system, and we also have some farmers in Germany who use this system, and it's very effective. And you can set it to spray like twice per week or daily, or sometimes even, at every milking, because the volume that is used per spraying is very low. So that's easy. The only problem with this automatic spraying system is that if you haven't bought it together with new robots, you have to go and invest in that, and that is, costly. So yeah.
What is the cost per cow of a treatment 2 times a week for Stalosan F and HooFoss?
Yeah, I think we say for HooFoss, it is around less than 10 euro per cow per year. And for Stalosan F, I think it is a bit lower, maybe 5-6 euro per cow per year. So it's not expensive, really. And if you think about the extra milk you will usually get if you have less pain and less laying cows and higher productivity, what we normally see is it will pay the price back. For instance, with Stalosan F, investigations from Denmark and Sweden show that if you reduce the somatic cell count from, say, just above 200 down to around 100, which is possible with Stalosan F, then you usually get approximately 4% milk more in average seen. And those 4% will easily pay for Stalosan F. Yeah.
Is there still available the solution with hoof mat and hoof bath?
Yeah, it is. We don't sell the mat that much anymore. We don't like the mat. In the beginning, we thought it was a very good idea because it reduces the need for HooFoss. You have to add less. And when the cow steps on the hoof mat, it releases HooFoss in a spraying kind of form, and it really flushes the cleft and the rear part of the hoof. So perfect. Only problem we realized after some time was that those hoof mats, after maybe a month or sometimes 3 or 4 or 6 months, it completely collapses. And this, spraying effect that is created when you compress the mat is completely gone. And then there is no more spraying, and the effect is not good enough. So nowadays we more and more, if you do want to use it in a hoof bath, we more and more recommend to just have a low level of HooFoss liquid in the bath, say 5 centimeters. It's enough to cover this rear area here. We don't recommend, normally it is recommended to use a hoof bath that is more than 3.5 meters long. And it makes very good sense for all the products on the market. But for HooFoss, we only need 1 dip. That's enough. And in order to save product and to keep the cost low, we recommend a hoof bath that is, the typical plastic one that is 2 meters long. And the inside measurement of the one we are, selling is 70 centimeters and 185 centimeters long. Low profiles in the bottom, important also, and we add up to 5 centimeters, and that reduces the amount needed, and it also reduces the cost. So that is the recommendations. And I will recommend to start up concentrated for the first month to have this, punch effect. And once you see a nice good effect, you can start to dilute HooFoss. Say 1-2 part water and 2-3 parts of HooFoss. And maybe later you can start to say 1 part water and 1 part HooFoss. You have to accept that maybe that is not enough, and you would have to return to a more concentrated solution. But it's different from farm to farm, how big is the pressure and so on. Okay, but always start concentrated, achieve a nice effect, and then you can start to experiment what is your level on your farm. Yep.
Yes, okay. The person who asked for use of HooFoss in the MIG robot is asking for a video where we can see how it works with a robot. Do you have such a video which we could send?
Yes, I have a video. It's
yeah.
Probably difficult to get it right now, but we can definitely send it afterwards. Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yes. And one last question. I have heard that Stalosan F is the only approved powder disinfectant in Europe and the US. Is that right?
Yeah, it is. It is right. It's in the US. We have it's called the US EPA registration, Environmental Protection Agency. That was achieved a long time ago, actually more than 10 years, and it's quite a bigger job. You have to show efficacy. You have to show there is no toxicity in the product, and so on. And that we have, and also in Europe, it's running now, and we are allowed to sell it as a biocide as the only powder product on the market. Yes.
Yes, perfect. Thank you very much, Jan. This was the last question. Okay. Maybe you can present the next topic of our webinar.
Yeah, I can do that. Hang on. So, yeah, as Anne mentioned, if you are interested in more webinars, the next one is going to be the importance of the vitamin E status of a calf and its impact on the immunity. So hopefully that will be of interest for you, and hopefully we will see you next time. Thanks.